Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
And this is Rita Cosby live from the Republican National Convention. What an incredible moment in history we are all witnessing. Everybody stay tuned here on Katz and Cosby because, boy, do we have an action-packed show today. We are expecting President Trump to be speaking live at any moment, and he has just announced who he is picking for his running mate, J.D. Vance, the new senator there from the state of Ohio, which is, boy, after so much anticipation and many good choices, he has narrowed it down to J.D. Vance, certainly from Ohio, from the Rust Belt. And we will also be hearing also potentially from J.D. Vance, of course, in the coming days. But incredible excitement here as we are in the Panther Arena, part of the Pfizer Center, right in the heart of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Also, of course, this comes after what has been just a heartbreaking weekend with the assassination attempt against former President Trump. We're going to be getting to that also later on this hour. John Katz also will be joining us later on in the week. Boy, what an action-packed show that we have. We will be speaking with Senator Ron Johnson, also Congressman Andy Ogles, also a local sheriff here in Wisconsin about what went down on Saturday. Also enormous news with Jack Smith getting slapped down by the judge in Florida, saying that he is essentially unconstitutional as a special counsel. And we also have in one moment joining us here from, of course, the Republican National Convention, we have Michael Waltz, the great congressman, former Green Beret, and I can't wait to get his take. Also in the studio back in New York, we have our favorites, of course. We have Judge Richard Weinberg, also former Congressman Peter King, and former Democratic New York Governor David Paterson. Guys, real quick, let's first go to you, Congressman Peter King. Your reaction to this enormous news with J.D. Vance.
Obviously, President Trump gave it a lot of consideration. I think he can be very helpful as firming up the Midwest, and especially in states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
And Judge Weinberg.
Well, I had my own favorite. J.D. Vance was not that favorite, but I think Vance will bring a lot to the ticket. He's young, he's dynamic, energy, he's a great speaker, and he has a lot of fire in the belly. And if that's what President Trump wants as running mate, he's got him.
Yeah, he certainly does have fire in the belly. And also, former New York Governor David Paterson, your reaction there?
Well, what this tells me is that President Trump is absolutely sure that he's going to win, because his vice presidential candidate has made a lot of controversial statements, and we won't get into what they are, but they are statements that are going to be part of the campaign. But I think President Trump thinks whatever it is will not be enough to dissuade from his effort, and it takes a lot of guts to do something like that, and it was a little surprising. I thought he'd take Glenn Youngkin.
Yeah, there were a lot of choices, and in fact, guys, just so you know, again, we are here live at the Republican National Convention. We're expected to hear from President Trump speaking at any moment. There's just incredible excitement because we haven't seen him, which is just going to be an amazing moment, and there will be a rousing, enormous applause. But there were a lot of choices. And joining us now here with me, right here on scene at the Republican National Convention, is the great Congressman Michael Waltz, of course, former Green Beret. His wife is a veteran, too, and I love that as well. Right. And also, you, sir, serve on House Intel, Armed Services, and Foreign Affairs Committee. We're so happy to have you here. Your reaction to, first of all, this enormous news, Congressman, that J.D. Vance has been picked. I brought up some of the names. I mean, there were so many people for him to pick from, and it's been the biggest guessing game in town who he's going to pick.
Well, I think that's one of the points that shouldn't get lost in this, just how deep and talented the Republican bench is. I mean, you think just a few years ago, mainstream media was saying nobody would want to work with Trump again if he decided to run, and look how many people of real depth and real talent wanted to be his vice president, was ready to serve with him. I like the fact that he is a veteran. We haven't had a veteran on the ticket in many cycles now.
Yeah, by the way, a Marine Corps, yeah.
Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
To all my Marines out there, I think he's going to be enormously helpful in the states that matter most, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, those Rust Belt states. But the thing that jumps out to me, I'm the co-chair of the platform committee for this convention with Senator Marsha Blackburn. We just introduced it on the floor, and we dedicated it to the forgotten men and women. And J.D. Vance's story, his life, his family, and his upbringing really embody those forgotten men and women that feel forgotten by too many administrations and politicians on both sides of the aisle. I think he will really capture that and be a huge, huge add to the ticket.
And everybody, we are live here on Katz and Cosby with Congressman Michael Waltz here in the heart of the Republican National Convention. You know, I had the honor of having dinner with Senator Vance a bit ago, and I remember him sharing the story of what he went through as it is exemplified in Hillbilly Elegy.
It is.
But here's a guy who came from rags to riches.
Yep.
He graduates from Ohio State University. He goes to Yale Law School. Think about that.
Right.
And now he very well may be potentially the youngest vice president. I think we have to look at that. He's 39 years old,
second
right?
Or third, but it's pretty close.
Pretty
yeah.
close. So what is your reaction to his story, too? And given the moment that we're at right now, Congressman, think about what happened just, 2 days ago, to the president.
No, but you think also, of course, his book, Hillbilly Elegy, the movie, but also what happened in East Palestine. What happened to his constituents?
The train derailment
there, and how they were forgotten. It's a bit of a policy irony that the Biden administration hates pipelines. Well, where do all those hazardous materials? They still have to move. They're just moving on rail and truck. And he introduced very thoughtful legislation to try to fix a lot of those problems. Look, at the end of the day, the president and the vice president have to fit hand in glove. They have to see eye to eye on everything. And I think the president is just very comfortable as he's gotten to know all of them. I think any one of them would have been a great pick. I love my Senator Marco Rubio.
Yeah, they're great choices.
Yeah, they're all great choices. But at the end of the day, it's the president's call. And we're off to victory in November.
Yeah, no, speaking of which, you are a former Green Beret.
Right.
And you know so well. I have to get your thoughts about the fact of what happened, of course, in Pennsylvania. I was heartbroken, of course, as I think the world was, to see this assassination attempt on the former president and right now looks like the likely future president again of the United States.
Yeah.
The fact that somebody, now we're learning that this guy, this 20-year-old guy, first of all, he's line of sight. I've covered many a White House event, many campaign event, as you know. And how could the Secret Service, when you see where the roof is, it's 130 yards away.
Right.
It's a 20-year-old guy, and we're hearing reports that he was kind of crawling around, climbing around.
Yeah, we've seen it. We have video.
Yes.
So the first thing that jumped out, first thing that jumped out of my mind is, my wife and I have been through basic training. You have to take shots twice that far, just with what we call iron sights, not much less a scope, just to be a basic soldier. So how he got that close is going to come out. I'm also on the oversight committee. We'll have the Secret Service director before our committee next Monday, so we'll have to come on and talk to you guys about it. But number two, agents have been reaching out to me and telling us that they have been begging their headquarters, DHS, Mayorkas, the Secret Service director, for more resources, and they have been repeatedly denied. So what I think is going to come out, what I predict, is that they tried to treat Trump just like any other former president with a standard Secret Service protection package. He is no Jimmy Carter or no Clinton or no Bush painting, on his ranch. He's out there with the rallies. He's got multiple residences. He even has foreign threats from the Iranians. He should have had a much, much bigger protection package than he did. And what happens when you don't have enough agents? You have to rely on local law enforcement. And God bless them. We love them, but they're not trained to the level of the Secret Service, and I think that's why that building was left uncovered.
That was catastrophic, because you see also where it was, though it's line of sight.
It's right there.
Right there.
Right there.
Absolutely. Stick with us if you could, Congressman. We have Congressman Peter King, former Congressman, who's got a question for you. Go ahead, Pete.
Good man.
Yep. Mike, it's great. Great listening to you, great talking with you. I was chairman of Homeland Security and also a ranking member. And whenever there was a controversy with the Secret Service, the director was on the phone the next day, coming down to Congress on their own within a day or two. And that was whether Democrat or Republican. They were very, very receptive. And this to me is shocking that after an assassination attempt on the president, she seems to have gone underground.
Yeah, the silence is deafening, isn't it, Peter?
It really
number one, I saw an interview with Bill Barr earlier today. He said, I would have fired her just based on this horrific response. You need to be out there reassuring the American people that Biden, Trump, RFK Jr., every one of their protectees will be kept safe. Because, again, I just can't overemphasize this. I sit on Intel. It's not just the domestic threats. There are very real foreign threats. We have a wide open border. The Iranians are openly talking about assassinating Trump and other members of his cabinet. You're going to see this come out as well, Peter, that they have been peeling back resources from the others involved in the Soleimani strike that have been left exposed. So we have a lot to uncover. These agents have told me all of their requests are in writing. And so we sent a document preservation notice, and we are going to get to the bottom of it. I am convinced, talking to these agents, that they did not give the Trump campaign the resources that they needed.
Hey, Mike, thank God you're on this, because you really got to lean on these guys. If anyone can do it, it's you. It's that Green Beret spirit.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. We're going to run to the sound of gunfire. Let me just say one other thing. I've seen men and women in combat. So has my wife, Julia, and base instincts kick in. We've seen people duck, cover, and do everything they can to get out of the way and hide. And we've seen men stand strong and move to the sound of the guns. And Trump's instincts showed. And his next instinct was to reassure the crowd and the country that he was okay, and I think that really speaks to his character.
That was an incredible moment, Congressman, because to
iconic.
see him, and having known him for decades, to see him get up and put his fist up in the air, it was like, America's back. You are not taking down America. This guy is a warrior.
And some people are criticizing the body bunker. They did what they were supposed to do, the close-in agents. He didn't want to leave. Yeah. I think he would have gone full Teddy Roosevelt and just gave the rest of his speech if they would have let him.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, you have a book coming out. Tell us real quick.
It's called Hard Truths, Think and Lead Like a Green Beret. America needs to hear these hard truths. I think we've gotten a little soft as a country. These are lessons from my time in combat, Africa through the Middle East, how we've applied them to Congress, how we've applied them to life and business.
Will you come back when the book comes out?
We will come out. It's coming out in October, available for pre-order, and proceeds go into veterans charities.
Oh, bravo. Come back again, please. Congressman, we love having you here. Thank you for joining us as
Rita.
Our first guest on Katz and Cosby from the RNC.
All right, let's win.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Congressman. A pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby, we have Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor Dershowitz, enormous news today with this decision coming from Judge Eileen Cannon. Everybody talking about it here at the RNC. Your reaction to the fact that she came out and said that the appointment of the special counsel Jack Smith has violated the Constitution. What does it mean to the Florida case and also maybe some of these other cases?
Well, it throws out the Florida case, and it probably throws out the D.C. case. It's the same special prosecutor, and if he was unconstitutionally appointed for Florida, he was unconstitutionally appointed for D.C. Look, this is an argument that's been around now for 30 years. Justice Scalia talked about it. It was talked about when special counsel was appointed in the Clinton case. This is an issue that has to be resolved by the Supreme Court. And she made the decision to strike it down, saying the appointment was unconstitutional, which means the primary implication is that there won't be a trial until after the election. It might be reversed on appeal. There's no predicting there's no real precedent for this. There's some strong arguments. I've looked at her 93-page opinion. It's certainly a strong opinion, quoting the Founding Fathers and Hamilton and the Federalist Papers. She has a strong argument, but it's possible that the Supreme Court will say no. But it's a good thing that the case has been decided in a way that now goes to the Supreme Court. And probably in a year, we'll know whether she was right or wrong. But it's a decision that can't be criticized as frivolous or anything like that, the way some of the Democrats are criticizing it. So here we have, the judge dismissing this case, probably ending up with the D.C. case dismissed, although they may decide in the D.C. case to go forward and create a conflict for the Supreme Court. We're not sure, but it has great implications.
What do you make of Professor Dershowitz? And again, we're here. I am live here at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee as we're speaking. And boy, there was so much buzz about it today. They're also very angry at some of the attacks already on Judge Eileen Cannon, especially coming on the heels, Professor Dershowitz, of this horrible assassination attempt against former President Trump. There were a lot of people here saying, gosh, we're praying that things would calm down. How offensive is it that it seems this sort of kumbaya moment didn't last very long on the Democratic side?
Well, again, the national slogan should be not e pluribus unum, but hypocrisy prevails. Some of the same people who are criticizing Judge Cannon were furious at the criticism that was directed against Judge Marchand, saying, oh, you don't criticize judges. The Connecticut Bar Association sent out a letter to its members. Don't do that. Don't attack judges. They're not going to send a letter out now about Judge Cannon because they're happy that Judge Cannon has been attacked. So there's enormous amount of hypocrisy. And I, too, was hoping for some amelioration of the tension. And this assassination, by the way, the most preventable assassination in American history. This was the easiest assassination attempt to prevent. A 20-year-old, nothing, with a big gun, comes, walks around the roof for enough minutes to have alerted the Secret Service. They never searched the building. They never made the building secure. The head of the Secret Service must be fired, and the Secret Service essentially has to be put in bankruptcy. And there has to be a commission appointed, maybe the head of the CIA, the head of the FBI, the head of the State Department Protective Services, to oversee the Secret Service. No American today can trust the Secret Service after this disaster.
Yeah, it is. I absolutely agree. Professor Dershowitz,
from causing a revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. It's heartbreaking. And listen, there are so many great men and women in the Secret Service, but this was catastrophic. Professor Dershowitz, let's go, if we could, to Judge Richard Weinberg back in New York. I know you got a question for Professor Dershowitz.
Alan, let me ask you this. What impact, if any, do you anticipate as a result of this attempted assassination that Judge Mershon, when he's up for sentencing, the sentencing date is in September. What's going to happen in that case? Is Mershon going to grant a continuance to see what happens in the election? Is he actually going to sentence Donald Trump at that time?
There's a case that's so clearly on point that doesn't allow a sentencing in this case. The Supreme Court decided you need to have a unanimous jury verdict in order to increase a penalty.
That's exactly right.
In this case, there was a non-unanimous verdict, which A, turned the misdemeanor into a felony, B, eliminated the statute of limitations, and C, increased the penalty. So it's a no-brainer that this case has to be thrown out. The immunity decision also has an impact on this. So if the judge goes forward with sentencing, he's just doing it to be perverse, because there's clearly has to be a reversal of this conviction. In the end, there will be no convictions against Donald Trump that stand or are valid. I wrote that in my book, Get Trump. I predicted it, and I was right. None of the cases against Trump will stand up in the end.
Wow. Let's go to Governor David Patterson. Go ahead, Governor.
Considering, Alan, that it's next year and the judge is overturned in today's decision, then all the people who would be berating her would now actually benefit from the fact that the decision would be overturned. So I don't know why they would jump the gun and be so malicious, particularly, as you said, in the days following the terrible attempt at assassinating a former president.
there are no limitations. Look at what my former colleague Lawrence Tribe, he tweeted today that Trump reap what he sows, quoting from the New Testament, reap what you sow. What he's basically saying, it's Trump's fault that he was almost assassinated. This is Professor Lawrence Tribe, who teaches law students, sending a message on his account saying you reap what you sow, as if somehow it was Trump's fault somehow that this terrible, terrible attempted assassination occurred. People have just lost their minds when it comes to Trump. Trump's derangement syndrome is real, and people have to understand that the logic, the rationale goes away when Trump's name is mentioned, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican.
Yeah, that seems to definitely be the case. It is just an incredible moment, and to see that already they are going after and attacking the judicial system, whether it be Judge Cannon or others, and attacking after what happened this weekend to the former president, that there hasn't been a more conciliatory tone has been just, I find it so reprehensible. I find them still reprehensible for attacking the Supreme Court as they have been. Also, Professor Dershowitz, it's really troubling. Professor Dershowitz, we love having you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much. Love you too, my friend. Thank you so much. And everybody, after the break, as we are live here on Katz and Cosby from the Republican National Convention, we are going to talk to the great Congressman Andy Ogles after the break. And also we're going to be talking with a big Wisconsin sheriff about what went horribly wrong, of course, at that rally in Pennsylvania. That and much more. And we continue also with Judge Richard Weinberg, also former Congressman Peter King, and also former New York Governor David Paterson. An action-packed show from the RNC in Milwaukee. Stay tuned, everybody.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
And this is Rita Cosby live here, Katz and Cosby live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, from the scene of the Republican National Convention, which is underway. They are also expecting President Trump to speak at any moment. We will take that live. There are rumors that he's going to pop in and show everybody how well he is doing and how resilient this man is after what happened this weekend, that horrific assassination attempt. Boy, there is so much buzz here. And also new news that RFK Jr. will be getting Secret Service protection. Finally, he has been, of course, on our show. He's been pleading with it and has asked on multiple occasions, has had also break-ins at his home. And, of course, it could not be more serious after the attempted assassination of former President Trump over the weekend. And joining us now here live on Katz and Cosby is Congressman Andy Ogles from the great state of Tennessee. And also we have with us as well Sheriff David Schmidt. He is with Dodge County, which of course is a county a little bit north of here. He's also with the Wisconsin Badger State Sheriff's Association. So great to have both of you here. We also have back with us in studio our tremendous panel with former Congressman Peter King, Judge Richard Weinberg, and former New York Governor David Paterson. Congressman Ogles, your reaction, first of all, that finally Secret Service protections given to RFK Jr. It seems like there were so many breakdowns of what happened over the weekend. And thank goodness President Trump, who we're waiting to speak at any moment, thank goodness he's okay.
Well, you go back to Saturday in the shooting. There's been a clear lack of leadership within that agency, a storied agency that's been protecting presidents for decades and decades, right? But on Saturday, they failed. And, you know, Kennedy's asked repeated times for good reason to have protection for himself, and it should have been granted. But Joe Biden is a bit of a prick. He is unwilling to be the better man. And quite frankly, the Democrat Party knows they can't win with Joe Biden. That's why they're in panic mode. And when you look across the nation, just hypothetically, or not hypothetically, but for example, New Jersey, Donald Trump's in New Jersey, has 107,000 people show up. And then on Saturday when he was shot, obviously the Secret Service took him to the ground, but he stood up. He raised his hand. He made a fist to show the American people that he wasn't going to quit, that even though they're trying to kill him, that he wasn't going to stop fighting. And that's leadership. You look at Joe Biden, who gets lost in the Rose Garden. He has to be helped off of a stage. He barely can put two sentences together. And Joe Biden pales in comparison to Donald Trump, who was shot, stood up and looked to the American people in the eye and said, I'm your leader. I'm your next president, and I'm going to fight for you.
That was an incredible moment, Congressman, to see that. First of all, and he knew enough also to duck behind, of course, that bulletproof glass. We know that it was right there in front of him. And the fact that he got up, it was almost, I use that symbolism. I had tears in my eyes when I saw his fist bump up. I thought it almost symbolized the coming back of America. Like, you cannot because I felt like it was not just an attack on President Trump. It's an attack on American democracy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are moments in history, you think about 9/11. When the American people, we were shocked. The world was shocked. And on Saturday, I was shocked. You were shocked. The American people were shocked. But it also showed a vulnerability that's got to be corrected, that the Secret Service is not up to the task. And look, I'm not picking on anybody, but President Trump's not a small man. He's 6'5". He's a large frame guy. And the fact that you have some individuals that are part of his detail that can't be any taller than 5'6", right? They're not big enough to protect the president.
Was the Secret Service too caught up in DEI? And in fact, the head of the Secret Service, her last job was security for Pepsi. I'm sorry, but I am, and obviously as a woman, I love seeing a woman out there protecting other people, but I want the best person protecting our former president and potentially our future president. I'm sorry.
Well, she even stated that she intends to bring diversity to the agency. It's not about, look, I might identify as an NFL football player, but you know what? At 5'11" and 175 pounds, I'm not going to be snapping the ball. You know why? Because I'm not big enough, right? And you have a former president who's 6'5", probably 280, 320 pounds. He's a big man.
Could you be a kicker? You could be a kicker, right?
But that being said, and so this idea that you're going to have people that, and again, he stood up. And they're trying to move him, and he stopped. He planted his feet, and that detail was not big enough, was not strong enough to move him. He paused, and they had to pause with him. Look, the sheriff here, he's a big fella. And if he's part of, say, my detail, he's going to have other big fellas, or ladies for that matter, with him. And if they need to move me as their dignitary, they're going to grab me, and they're going to move me. At that point, the Secret Service, their job is to protect the individual, right? And it doesn't matter that you want to get your shoes. It doesn't matter that you want to grab your wife. It doesn't matter that you want to pick up your watch. They are going to move you because they have a job to do. And the Secret Service failed the American people when they left that rooftop wide open. Look, how does some idiot 20-year-old kid with no military training get on top of a roof in 130 yards? Where was the drone? Where was the drone? That's all it would have taken.
Absolutely. And, Sheriff, I have to ask your question as a security expert. You hit on some great points, Congressman, because all I kept thinking about, I have been at so many of these White House events. There is the rooftop. It is right there as the Congressman is describing. Here we are at the RNC. I mean, it's incredible. It's unfathomable to me that the Secret Service didn't do an advance of that area, didn't surveil the area. There's all these finger pointing today, and we're finding out that guy, the kid, as the Congressman just so aptly described, 20-year-old kid, he bought 50 rounds earlier, a few hours earlier. He was doing a little bit of sharpshooting through his military club, but just to your point, crawling around for minutes. Do some heads need to roll? Do we need to see the head of the Secret Service and whoever was in charge of that advance team? I love law enforcement, but I am angry today, as every American should be.
First of all, I hate to correct you. I'm going to correct you on my name. It's Sheriff Dale Schmidt, not David. We'll start there.
Forgive me then. All right.
Okay.
You're a big guy. I don't want to. The congressman and I don't want to make you mad here at the RNC.
If congressman's in any harm's way, I'm going to pick you up and move you. You're not going to stop me. You're not planting your feet. We're going to go.
Thank you, Sheriff.
But great questions. And first of all, I don't want to take anything away from the Secret Service staff that was on the ground. Even if they're a small frame and they're standing up there, putting their hands up, getting in the way, willing to take a bullet for our next president. I'm very proud of the work they did. But on the other hand, we do have some serious flaws in planning at the beginning. We need to have somebody who's standing out there saying, where are vulnerabilities? And if I'm standing there at the podium, I'm looking around and I'm saying, that's a rooftop. We need to have somebody on that rooftop. That's the question I have. Not necessarily is there a drone in the air, but there's a rooftop that's in range of, I could make that shot easily. Why do we not have somebody sitting on top of that rooftop? Is it because they didn't have enough resources? If that's a problem, then that needs to be addressed. I guarantee you the Secret Service won't make that mistake again. But if the president ever comes to my county, if the Secret Service is not covering a rooftop like that, my team is going to be there. I don't understand how, if Secret Service wasn't there, why we don't have local law enforcement on that rooftop.
And by the way, there was a lot of finger pointing today because state police said, no, listen, Pennsylvania, it wasn't ours. We were hoping Secret Service is in charge. The local police, there seems to be all this finger pointing. At the end of the day, I do believe, as you do, as you're just saying, Secret Service should have looked at that. When they sent that advance team, line of sight, when you see it, that roof is right there in the area. That is catastrophic. What do you think should happen, Sheriff?
Somebody has to answer for that, and I'm not saying necessarily has to be somebody at the top, but whoever is making that plan, there has to be some accountability there. And I'm sure the FBI will get to the bottom of who made that plan and why they made that plan and why they didn't cover that. To me, this comes down to, do we have an inadequate allocation of Secret Service resources to this type of an event? I mean, you have somebody who is traveling the country at rally after rally after rally. This is not the first time they've done this. They did this over and over and over again in each of the last two presidential elections. They should know this should be down to a science by this point, and I can't believe somebody with the volatility, the hatred that's come at our former president. I just cannot believe that you would not have this down to a science, that I'm going to have enough there to protect the president. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Absolutely. Congressman, we just have about 15 seconds left. Your final thoughts.
Well, I just agree with the sheriff. I mean, look, even if the Secret Service had delegated that to the state police or delegated that to local law enforcement, at the end of the day, they are charged with protecting the president. They've got to dot the I's. They've got to cross the T's. They've got to go back and double check that all of those gaps are covered, even if it's not their personality. They are the supervisors on the ground. It's their responsibility. And if the president had been killed, they would have been the ones responsible. But like you said, they are finger pointing because they're trying to cover their own what's right now.
Yeah, wow. Well, both of you guys, thank you for joining us here live at the Republican National Convention. Thank goodness President Trump is okay. We should be hearing from him momentarily. This is an incredible moment to be here at the RNC. It's an honor to be with both of you guys. Thank you for joining us live here on Katz and Cosby.
Thank
guys.
you. My pleasure.
Thank you. And everybody stick with us. A lot more ahead after the break. We're going to be talking to Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin, where we are right now here at the Republican National Convention, and Bill O'Reilly. We have an action-packed show. But first, here are the top headlines from Goya.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And the Republican Party is officially nominating Donald Trump as its presidential nominee for a third time. Experts in Wisconsin say the assassination attempt on former President Trump will likely result in a short-term boost for his polling numbers. Trump has chosen Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. He made the announcement on his Truth social media account. Vance was elected to the Senate in 2022 and represents a key swing state in the 2024 race. And New Yorkers are dealing with another heat wave. Mayor Eric Adams says the heat index is expected to be around 100 degrees at times through Wednesday, with not much relief at night, triggering heat advisories. There are hundreds of cooling centers open, and some city-run pools are extending their hours until 8 p.m. And those are the hot headlines from Goya.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC. Live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now with the big breaking news is Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Milwaukee. Senator, it's great to be here in your state. What's your reaction to the fact that President Trump has picked J.D. Vance to be his running mate?
Well, first of all, welcome to Milwaukee and Wisconsin. I hate to lose him as a colleague. I mean, that's probably the best thing I can say. He is going to be a loss. I mean, President Trump, you're stealing my colleague from the body I serve, but he's a fabulous pick. You know, J.D. is highly intelligent, highly articulate, a person of integrity. He's got a fabulous background, okay? So it's exactly what President Trump has done. You know, he's really been a catalyst for the realignment of this country. You know, up is always the Democratic Labor Party, right? Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota. Democrats were concerned about the men and women, okay? That's totally switched. Now Democrats are concerned about their work policies, and it's literally Republican led by President Trump that has literally, our policies, have resonated with working men and women. Present them now. And J.D. Vance is, right out of that mold, comes right from that kind of background. You know, he does epitomize that. I've had the pleasure of having dinner with the senator, and you think about his life story, which you know all too well, of course, rags to riches, joins the Marine Corps, writes that incredible book, Hillbilly Elegy, about his life. Do you think also he's 39? Very young. And as we know, if President Trump gets reelected again, he is obviously likely to be sort of the heir apparent. What's your reaction to we may have a 39-year-old vice president coming in soon? Well, he would obviously be an heir apparent, certainly have a leg up in anybody else who'd want to run in 2028. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious. I think President Trump knew that. And I'm sure took that into account in terms of his selection. What did you think of the fact he had a lot of people in the running, people that we all know, Senator Johnson, and people who are here as we're in the throes of the RNC? You had Doug Burgum, of course. There was also Glenn Youngkin was in the mix. Tim Scott was in the mix. There were Marco Rubio, a number of folks. Could he almost not make a mistake? I mean, there's sort of an abundance of riches and a number of other names. Ben Carson's name was out there, too. He probably could have used a dartboard, which is nice to have that situation. We have such a wealth of talent to choose from. But again, I think he chose wisely. And, I wish J.D. Vance well. And I think it'll be a very effective ticket for us. What does it mean to be here, too, at this moment, Senator Johnson? Because, of course, we think about what happened to our friend Donald Trump just a few days ago. And here we are. Security is absolutely intense here at the Republican National Convention. It always is, but especially given the moment of this moment. What are your thoughts going through your mind? And what was your reaction to what happened over the weekend, too? Well, it was a national tragedy. Obviously, immensely relieved when we saw President Trump stand up, show the kind of strength and resolve that he showed to the American people. But then to find out that 50-year-old father of two died saving his family, an American hero. Is that true, Rita? In the midst of any American tragedy, look at 9/11. We see tragedy, but we see the best of America come out. The firefighters, the Port Authority, the cops walking up the Twin Towers. So we also have an opportunity. I come from a manufacturing background. Anytime you had a problem, the first question I'd ask myself was, is there an opportunity? Is there something we can make of this? And we have an opportunity now, and I think President Trump is seizing it. So what do I see at the convention? What I've seen is a progression or a growth of hope. Or of unity. I think Americans or Republicans are pretty unified because we saw the destructive policies of the left. So it unified. We needed to defeat that. Then, of course, when we saw the debate, we saw President Biden is obviously unfit. He can't be president. We have to win. Then you saw President Trump narrowly escaping an assassination attempt. That sealed the deal in terms of unifying the Republican Party. On top of that, then, and we were talking about this earlier, that is a life-changing experience. I mean, President Trump, he was, a whisker away from death. And a man tragically lost his life, that changes you. You've got a potential in President Trump can only serve 4 terms. He's not burdened by re-election. That's very liberating. A changed man realizing that God saved his life for a reason. Hopefully he'll use that salvation to help heal and unify this nation. That's what he's talking about now. So, and both he and President Biden are talking about unifying and healing this nation. So let's take both presidents at their word, and let's actually do that.
You're going to see the president, I understand, tonight. What are you going to say to him?
Well, what I said to him this morning, which is he was in my prayers. He's got my full support, obviously my full support. He's got the full support of Republicans here in Wisconsin, I think around the country. And we just wish him well. We're just so grateful that he survived, and we're just so grateful that he has this opportunity now, and he's seizing it to unify and heal this nation.
You know, you brought up that moment, Senator Ron Johnson. Here we are at the RNC in Milwaukee, and I think of that famous shot of him after, thank goodness, that it just grazed his ear, and the world's wondering, is he going to get up? He gets up, and he has that fist bump. And knowing him as we both do, I thought, what a moment. But that just epitomized, I almost feel in many ways, just America right now. What went through your mind just seeing that image of sort of, we're still standing?
So I knew what a great life President Trump could have. And he gave it all up in 2016. He looked at America and, said, these people are so stupid. I mean, this isn't that hard. We can fix this. So he ran for office and he won. And he did fix a lot of things. He did make America great again, proud of itself. So he knew running again for re-election in 2024, he'd be vilified. I don't think even he could contemplate or anticipate the weaponization of government against him by the Biden administration, but he had to endure it. He knew he was risking his life, and he came that close to losing his life, and he didn't have to do it. And again, you and I know why he did it, because he loves his country. He fervently loves the country. And by the way, that's the attribute of everybody that goes to a Trump rally that they all have in common. They're diverse people, but they all fervently love this country. And again, I think most Americans do. So let's acknowledge that fact. Let's not question the other side's motives. Let's come together. Let's ignore the political leaders who are trying to divide us. And let's fix these enormous problems facing this nation.
Absolutely, because, boy, we have a lot of them. Well, Senator Ron Johnson, I'm so glad to be in your state here in Milwaukee. Congratulations, and we wish you such a great convention, and how wonderful to have you here with us. Thank you.
Have a great time here, and if you can, try and find fresh cheese curds.
Yeah, I heard they're the best.
Got to get them fresh. They can't be refrigerated. They squeak. You'll love them.
Thank you. We're going to try them. I can't wait. It's so great to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much, Senator Ron Johnson. And, guys, I'm going to try the cheese curd when I'm here. It's supposed to be the best. After the break, everybody, Bill O'Reilly is going to join us here on Katz and Cosby. We are live from the Republican National Convention right in the heart of Milwaukee, waiting to hear from President Trump, who could be speaking at any moment. It would be the first time the nation has also seen him since that assassination attempt. An enormous news day. J.D. Vance named as his running mate. And we will talk to the great Bill O'Reilly right after the break.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
And we are back here live at the Republican National Convention for Katz and Cosby. Of course, this is Rita Cosby. And what an action-packed day. We are waiting to hear from the former President of the United States and see him for the very first time, of course, since what happened with that horrible assassination attempt. Also, the announcement of J.D. Vance as his choice for running mate, the Ohio senator. And RFK finally getting Secret Service protection. Again, this comes after the terrible assassination attempt of President Trump that took place over the weekend. And joining us now to talk about all of this and so much more is the great Bill O'Reilly, the host, of course, of Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly every weeknight, 9 to 10 p.m., and mega best-selling author. Bill, first, your reaction. You and I haven't had a chance to talk. Everybody here at the Republican National Convention is, of course, thankful that President Trump is doing okay. First of all, the assassination attempt and your thoughts about the big news with J.D. Vance.
Well, a quarter of an inch and Donald Trump's dead. And so the country spirals into chaos politically if that happened. Now, American history has been altered. A number of unintended consequences. I name them on the No Spin News tonight on BillO'Reilly.com. And I deal with some of them on Common Sense at 9 p.m. on WABC tonight. One example is that Joe Biden was very close to losing his slot over the weekend until this terrible thing happened. Now, politics has to be set aside as far as whether Biden makes it or not for at least a week, maybe two. So it bought Biden some time as the momentum against him was growing. That's the biggest one. Second one is you don't know what effect this is going to have on Donald Trump psychologically. And I get into that because I wrote Killing Reagan, and Reagan came very close to death as well, and it changed his whole life. Changed him physically, changed him mentally. You just don't recover from something like that very quickly. Now, Trump is resilient. You saw him obviously react after he was shot, but it has to have an effect, and we don't know what that effect will be. So you got to be honest about that. As far as Vance is concerned, it's kind of befuddling. He's not going to get Donald Trump any votes. I wrote a message of the day, just filed it on BillO'Reilly.com. It looks to me like an in-your-face move by Donald Trump saying, hey, we're going to MAGA all the way. We're not going to make any compromises. I'm going with the biggest MAGA guy I can find, and that's Vance. And
it's interesting, Bill. I thought the same thing too. I was thinking the same thing. What did you think? Do you think that was the right choice? What's your thought on that?
If I would not have done it if I were Trump, because Trump needs votes. I would have picked Marco Rubio out of the men he was considering. I think that the governor of Arkansas, Huckabee Sanders, would have been the best choice for him. And I don't think she wants it, but Trump's got to put together a coalition. MAGA's not going to make it a sure win. But he's looking at Michigan, he's looking at Wisconsin, he's looking at these working class states that Vance has big appeal. So it's not total in your face. There is some calculation, but Rubio would give him momentum in the Hispanic precincts, and if Trump can carry 50% of the Hispanic American vote, he wins. And Rubio is a very, very smart foreign policy guy, where Vance, he's against giving aid to Ukraine. And to those of us who understand the situation there, Trump has not defined Ukraine at all. We don't know where Trump is on it. But Vance has been very outspoken is that we shouldn't be doing this over there. Now, is Vance going to do what Trump tells him to do? Yes. Does anyone vote for vice president? No. But I think it's more of an in-your-face, here we come, MAGA people, we're going to take over.
Yeah, I think so, too. Hey, Bill, also big stuff on the news front. Talk about Morning Joe, Bill O'Reilly.
Well, we did a special report, Rita, on Saturday night right after the assassination attempt. And I said that there's a hate brigade in the United States that is paid by corporations. And heading the list of the hate brigade is MSNBC. And I ran a clip of Scarborough just calling Trump a Nazi and this and his vile stuff every blanking day on that show. And I wasn't surprised they pulled it, they being Comcast NBC, because they're in trouble now. These haters, and not just on the left, the haters on the right too,
they're in trouble. The spotlight's on them, and they're receding. And the second most hateful program on the air is The View, and I watched it today. Just when it came out, they could not restrain themselves. They didn't use personal attacks, but it was all about white man shooting Trump, Republican registered. They couldn't stop. And Disney can't control them, doesn't want to control them. And I think Americans have had enough now. So these people are going to pay a big, big price. And Morning Joe got a taste of that today.
What do you think, Bill, is going to happen when we hear from President Trump? They're expecting him to speak tonight. I'm here at the Republican National Convention. I mean, it's just an incredible moment in history given what's happened, of course, as you brought up with Biden, but also as we've seen what happened, sadly, with President Trump over the weekend with that assassination attempt. And also, what do you think we're going to hear when he accepts the nomination formally, which is going to happen just a few days from now here where I am in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention, because there's reports out that he's changed a little bit his tone of his speech to make it more of a unifying type speech. How do you see his messaging?
Well, the first round is going to be about the man who was killed and the two people who were wounded.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
He's going to present himself as like, I'm okay, but look at this. And then it'll be a pep rally about Vance. That'll be the first round tonight. The speech, that's true, he is becoming more conciliatory in his wording of the speech, which is a smart move, because both Biden and Trump have used provocative personal attacks. They have. And that really has to stop, I think.
Yeah, I think in very many ways for the good of the country. Real quick, what else? What did you make of Nikki Haley? We just have about 30 seconds left because she's going to be speaking here at the convention. That's an interesting move.
Yeah, and I think it's a smart move. Ms. Haley competed. She wasn't in the mud. She's an accomplished woman, a Republican. Why would you deny her a platform to speak? We're all about competition. Trump beat her. Okay, but she certainly has a right to get up there and tell the American people what she believes and why she believes it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very powerful message of unifying with the Republican Party. She's speaking, as we know, also DeSantis later on this week. Bill, thank you. We will all definitely be tuning in to Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly at 9 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Bill, thank you. Love having you here.
Thanks for having me, Rita.
Thank you so much. And Judge Richard Weinberg and also Congressman Peter King, you guys, and Governor David Patterson, everybody, what do we all stand for? Truth, justice, and the American way. God bless America. Live from the RNC. We're going to be here all week, everybody. God bless America. God bless our president and also our former president.